When I was in school, I used to believe that I wasn't exactly what you'd define as intelligent. The only reason I graduated was because I passed art, music, drama, and business class. I failed every other subject that I thought defined my intelligence, including Math A, the easiest math class offered. I left home at 17 to begin university on the Gold Coast, and it was only a few months before I began to fail every subject there too. So I decided to just get a job. 4 years passed and I soon found myself climbing the corporate ladder, rubbing shoulders with business leaders, where I found my unique skill set was well received, landing amazing managerial positions. But deep inside I knew there's just got to be more. Having almost lost my little brother to suicide, having lost my best friend to suicide, and having so many of my friends also lose friends and family to suicide, I really began to question what life was really all about. So in 2012, I swapped the stilettos for boots, the tight corporate suits for ripped jeans and baggy shirts, and I travelled the globe. Most of it alone, experiencing, feeling, learning, seeing, and touching this divine world. I didn't know what I didn't know. And if I wanted to find out what I didn't know, I really had to do something different. I had to get out of my comfort zone and get really, really uncomfortable. And I did exactly that whilst travelling through South America, where I encountered a number of experiences that really put things into perspective for me. I remember one night seeing a young boy no more than 5 years old sitting outside a hostel waiting for some food or some money. He had a delicately small frame, beautiful big brown eyes and a snotty nose. I asked the hostel staff about the boy and they said he doesn't want food, he just wants money because he's addicted to sniffing glue. I tried to sleep that night, but all I could think about was this little boy. It was freezing outside and I knew he had no shoes, ripped shorts and a tiny shirt, and he was sleeping alone on the freezing cold concrete floor. I was in Santa Marta, Colombia, so walking outside wasn't an option, especially in the area I was staying. So I woke one of the boys in the hostel and begged him to get out of his warm bed to come with me so I could see if this little boy was okay. I peered out the front door and I could see his little body curled so tightly in the corner trying to keep warm. I took some food and some water out to him, but he was too frail, too fragile, and too high to feed himself. My impatient, freezing friend was yelling at me from the doorway of the hostel, telling me to come back inside, leave the food with him, and it was too dangerous for me to stay outside. I've never had a near-death experience, but in that very moment, my entire life began flashing through my mind in vivid images. For me, there was no other option but to sit down on the freezing cold floor with the boy and feed him. Because I knew the moment that I stepped back inside, someone else would have taken the food that I'd left for him. About an hour had passed and I managed to get a substantial amount of food and water back into his little body. And by now his eyes were wide open. We had a very basic conversation in very broken Spanish, and he even managed a few smiles. From that day onwards, regardless of my insignificant backpacker's budget, I'd give something to someone every single day, be it a few dollars or a moment of my love and time. It was Winston Churchill who said, "We make a living by what we get, but we make a life by what we give." Coming home a year later, deeply touched by the people and the cultures, the history, and more curious about the meaning of life than ever, I enrolled into course after course, studying books on neuroscience, consciousness, spirituality, the power of the mind, studying the micro world of quantum physics and the macro world of the universe and the cosmos, asking questions and seeking answers. One of my greatest learnings was halfway through last year when I discovered I had a brain. A brain that contains unlimited power and knowledge, and I'd never known how to use it before. In fact, it was using me. A brain that is no different to Einstein's or Tesla's or yours, but limited only by my conditioning and beliefs. I had been spoon-fed content my entire life, taught to remember it, then to regurgitate the information at the exam at the end of the semester, and if I remembered it all correctly, I get an A+, and I'm smart. Clearly, my memory wasn't running in accordance to what was expected in school. There is only one right answer, which lay not in my mind but in the teacher's, and if answered incorrectly, you were ostracised, and the only safe place was at the back of the room. However, the fact that jellyfish have survived for 650 million years despite not having a brain gave me some hope. I began to realise that knowing a lot and thinking you know so much that you need not question what you know does not make you intelligent. Questioning everything, even that which you know, is what makes you intelligent. So I questioned everything, shifting me into a completely new paradigm. Why became my favourite word. How became my second. And what if became my third. And now I think I'm on the Secret Service's watch list. No joke. The moment I learned how to think, I was then able to learn what to think. And now I'm able to begin to understand the infinite power of the human mind and how it works. I spend my weekends reading about the beautiful complexities of the quantum realm that makes you and I, these flesh puppies with infinite amounts of energy, a miracle in this existence. But I am but one very fortunate human being among way too many unfortunate. If we could shrink the Earth's population of over 7 billion people down to a village consisting of 100 people with all the existing ratios the same, it would look like this. There would be 60 Asians, 14 Americans, 13 Africans, 12 Europeans, and 1 Australian or Kiwi. There would be 52 female and 48 male, 70 non-white and 30 white, 70 non-Christian and 30 Christian, 89 heterosexual and 11 homosexual. 6 people would possess 60% of the entire village's wealth, and all 6 would be from the US. 50 would live on less than $2 a day, 25 on less than $1. 80 would live in substandard housing, 70 are unable to read or write, 50 suffer malnutrition, 48 are in need of water. There is 1 college graduate, 1 TV, 1 computer. There is no doctor, no nurse, no dentist, no hospital clinic, no school, no common language, and the average person in this village is a 13-year-old Chinese girl. In Australia, 1 in every 200 are completely homeless, and to put that into perspective, almost the entire population of Cairns is homeless, and almost 20% of those are under the age of 12. I didn't understand. How can we have so few people up the top with so much, and so many people down the bottom with so little? How did humanity become so unbalanced and unequal? What if we weren't designed to live the way we've been conditioned to live, and that's why suicide, homelessness, and obesity are on the rise? What is our basic human nature? Is it to cooperate or dominate? Is it for kingdom or democracy? Is it for competition or equality? When you look at ancient and indigenous cultures around the world, one of their highest values, if not the highest, is cooperation, and competition is valued very low. In some of these cultures, beyond a certain boundary, competition is even considered a mental illness. You look at the Western culture and we value competition extremely high, to the extent where we celebrate, praise and reward its best competitor, seen on the front of glossy gossip magazines around the world. And our children grow up wanting to be famous. Animals and nature can also be looked at as competitive. However, the reality is cooperation is just as much a part of their reality as survival of the fittest. In fact, democracy and equality is played out every day by nature, and beautifully portrayed in murmurations of starlings, or giant schools of fish, or herds of deer, where they all vote individually hundreds of times per minute with the beat of every wing, with the pump of every gill, or in the direction in which they point their nose. Democracy is found in insects all the way up to primates. In the book The Descent of Man by Charles Darwin, he mentions survival of the fittest twice. and he mentions love 95 times. The basis of nature is cooperation and democracy, and it is found in our DNA. In fact, you can't even be a human without another human. If there were no community, there would be no us. As technology evolved over the last century, it seems our human connection dissolved. We've created more technology with the intent to bring about more abundance that has only left us with more needs and more wants. An education system that grades us on our ability to remember, not our ability to think, learning almost everything except how we think. And corporations that make decisions based on their bottom line rather than the ecological effect it has on humanity and the globe. So how did we, as a human race, go from living through our hearts in harmony and taking care of one another to living from our conditioned minds, stuck in a cycle of manifesting a world immersed in scarcity, competition, and fear? Einstein said, "I fear the day that technology will surpass our human interaction. We will have a generation of idiots." I believe his fear is nearer than we choose to believe. I cringe when I sit in a restaurant and I see families with their children buried with their faces in iPads and handheld game devices, completely disconnected from human interaction, connection, and love. Have we become addicted and hypnotized by a world of fluctuating forms, immersed and identified with the content of our lives? It seems we are more concerned and consumed by the fear of being less than what society says I should be, instead of who I could be if no one told me who I should be. Have we forgotten who we are beyond the story of our lives and beyond the incessant stream of thought? Are we unconsciously consumed by time that we have forgotten eternity? Unconsciously consumed by money and material items that we have forgotten our natural state of human interaction, connection, and love? Whether we choose to acknowledge it or not, we are all responsible for each other and the world. We are all responsible for Earth's current state because either unconsciously or consciously we have made it that way. And it is you and I who have the power and the means to not only create a better future, but a thriving one. And it begins with you. To survive as a species, we must soon realise that the model we are working from is broken. Just as the adolescent teenager must accept and adapt to the physical and mental conditions of life, we too, as a human species, must accept and adapt to the changing mental, emotional, and spiritual conditions of life if we too wish to evolve. In today's society, anybody that galvanizes people, inspires people, cares for people, creates communities, and gives without the intention of receiving are the real heroes and survivors. And I want to say from the absolute depths of my heart and soul, thank you, because there are many of you in this room today. A journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step. And when we come together as a community, that one step can be one very big, giant leap. I look back in my life with immense gratitude for all the gifts I've received on my journey that got me to this very divine point. The money that people invested in my growth and passions, and more importantly, the time that people invested to share their stories, their wisdom, and their guidance. Money can be replaced. Time cannot. I look at this big, beautiful world with 7.2 billion people, and although I'm just one young person who thinks they're crazy enough to change it, I've made it my mission to give back to this world as many gifts as it has to me tenfold. The ripple effect begins with one drop. If you don't have the money, give your time. If you don't have the time, give your money. I'm curious, Cairns. How big is the stone we're going to throw into the pond today? How big a ripple would you like to create? The ripple begins with you.